a picture of him and Lori, like the same exact pose.
What do you mean?
I mean, the same exact pose that he took with me.
Okay.
And he did the same with Lori.
Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following video is made for entertainment and educational reasons only. Just 1 minute ago, Samuel L. Jackson took the witness stand. The courtroom was dead silent. Cameras were banned. Reporters scribbled notes at rapid-fire pace. And then he spoke. I watched a man with power use it to build loyalty and fear. Steve Harvey was his handler, not his friend, not his peer, his handler. The room froze. According to multiple verified sources, Samuel L. Jackson dropped a direct, damning accusation linking America's beloved TV host Steve Harvey to embattled music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Not just as a casual acquaintance, but as an enabler, a facilitator, a silent manager of optics. A man who, in Jackson's words, ran damage control for decades. The ripple effect was instant. Social media erupted, news outlets scrambled, and within seconds, Steve Harvey, Diddy, and Samuel L. Jackson were trending worldwide, tied together in a headline that nobody saw coming. But how did we get here? Samuel L. Jackson, the unshakable force of Hollywood, has never been one to involve himself in celebrity gossip. He built his career on grit, integrity, and boundary-breaking roles. But what most people don't realize is that he also built something even more sacred: his family. A 40-plus-year marriage, a daughter who's never been involved in a scandal, a private life fiercely guarded from industry chaos. So when Jackson raised his voice, not as an actor, but as a father, people listened. His statement in court didn't just critique Steve Harvey's parenting. It exposed what Jackson alleges is a long-running pattern of silence and complicity. And at the center of that pattern, the relationship between Diddy and Steve Harvey, one that stretches back to the early 2000s and possibly further. Jackson's courtroom comments reportedly referenced a specific incident in 2019 when 49-year-old Diddy was seen vacationing with 22-year-old Lori Harvey, Steve's stepdaughter. What disturbed Jackson wasn't just the age gap or the headlines, it was the presence of Steve Harvey himself. There smiling, seated beside his daughter and her rumored boyfriend, a man nearly his own age. I don't care about fame, Jackson said, but if that was my daughter, I'd feel like I failed as a father. And that's what turned this into a bombshell. Because now the public isn't just asking if Diddy's guilty, they're asking who helped him hide, who looked the other way, who benefited. And according to Samuel L. Jackson, Steve Harvey may be one of those names. This was never about gossip. This is about the protection of power, and Jackson just kicked open the courtroom doors. The question now, how many more names are behind them? If part one left the courtroom stunned, part two had the world asking a chilling question. How deep does this go? Let's go back to the scene that started it all. It's 2019. Photos emerge of Sean Diddy Combs and Lori Harvey, 22 years old at the time, vacationing together in Cabo San Lucas. Then just days later, they're spotted in Italy. But this isn't some low-key getaway. This is a family dinner. Seated across from Lori and Diddy, none other than Steve Harvey and his wife Marjorie. And that's when the optics shattered. People didn't want to believe it at first. Could Lori really be dating Diddy? Was the man who once worked with Steve Harvey on talk shows, who had been photographed laughing with his family, now involved with Harvey's daughter? More questions followed. Was this even Lori's first link to the Combs family? Because prior to Diddy, rumors swirled that Lori had also been romantically linked to Justin Combs, Diddy's son. The internet couldn't make sense of it. Had Lori really dated both father and son? Was it a PR stunt, a smear campaign, or something much more twisted? No one could prove it, but the timeline didn't lie. Photos showed Lori with Justin in social settings, intimate dinners, exclusive parties. Then suddenly those sightings stopped, and in their place, paparazzi snapping her alongside Diddy, older, richer, more powerful. And then that infamous Italian dinner happened. Many people would look at a father and say, there's no way he would allow this. No way he'd smile at a table where his daughter dines with a man twice her age, a man tied to his own career. But Steve Harvey did, and that's what shocked fans the most. Was this fatherly indifference or something worse? Samuel L. Jackson seems to believe it was the latter. In court, sources say Jackson implied that Steve Harvey positioned himself in Diddy's world, even at the cost of his daughter's dignity. That Harvey knew the rumors, saw the headlines, and still chose to sit at that dinner table. The question now being whispered across Hollywood isn't just whether Lori and Diddy dated, it's whether Steve Harvey, intentionally or not, handed Lori over to protect his own seat at the table. One former network producer described the moment they saw the Italy dinner photos. "We all looked at each other like, did Steve just endorse this? Because it looked like approval. And if it wasn't, why didn't he say anything?" Even Lori has tried to shut down the firestorm. In a 2023 interview with Adrienne Bailon, she addressed the father-son dating rumors directly. "Absolutely not true," she said. "There's been a lot of stories, a lot of misconceptions. But the damage had already been done, because in Hollywood, where silence often speaks louder than any denial, the absence of outrage can feel like complicity. And now with Samuel L. Jackson naming Steve Harvey in court, that silence is no longer acceptable. It's being examined, dissected, and potentially entered into evidence. In Hollywood, image is everything. And two of the industry's most recognizable men, Samuel L. Jackson and Steve Harvey, have spent decades shaping theirs. Both are icons. Both are self-made. Both are loved by millions. But when it comes to family, fatherhood, and the accusations now swirling around them, the similarities stop cold. Samuel L. Jackson has never pretended to be perfect. In fact, he's been more honest than most. A recovering addict. A man who, early in his marriage, admits he emotionally disappeared. He retreated to the basement of his own home, consumed by substance abuse and shame. By his own account, he became a troll in the basement, emerging only to hover around his family, then disappearing again. But here's the twist. He didn't stay there. His wife, LaTanya Richardson Jackson, refused to abandon him, not because of denial, but because of conviction. "God told me to stay," she said in an interview years later, and together they fought their way back. They rebuilt their marriage. They raised their daughter Zoe. They made a promise that the most revolutionary thing a black couple could do in America was to stay together and raise a child with both a mother and father in the home. They weren't just a Hollywood family, they were a mission statement. Fast forward to today, and Zoe Jackson is a respected Hollywood producer with a squeaky clean image and zero scandal to her name. She doesn't chase clout. She doesn't sell stories. She makes stories. And her father, the man who once vanished into the basement, now praises her like the greatest role of his life. So when Samuel L. Jackson sees another public figure, a fellow black father, smiling while his daughter sits across from a man twice her age, under public scrutiny, wrapped in rumors, with no visible pushback, his reaction isn't subtle. In his courtroom testimony, Jackson reportedly said, "I would be heartbroken if that were my daughter. I'd feel like I failed as a father." That wasn't a hypothetical, that was personal. A line in the sand, a direct jab at Steve Harvey, because Steve Harvey tells a different story, a more polished one. But under the polish, cracks. He's been married 3 times. His current wife, Marjorie, has a past shadowed by alleged connections to drug traffickers. One of her ex-husbands served time and later accused her of being complicit. Steve's biological children come from a previous marriage. Lori Harvey, the daughter in question, is Marjorie's child from a different relationship. But Steve adopted her, he raised her, and for years he proudly referred to her as his daughter. That is, until things got uncomfortable. When rumors of Lori's connection to Diddy surfaced, Steve didn't speak up. He didn't set the record straight. He didn't protect the family brand. He protected the Hollywood one. No statements, no denials, no outrage, just silence. And in some circles, silence sounds like compliance. Samuel L. Jackson's courtroom statement did more than call out Steve. It put a mirror up to every man who claims to protect his family while protecting his career instead. Jackson has built his legacy not just on blockbuster films, but on fatherhood, on redemption, on accountability. Harvey, for all his jokes about relationships and manhood, is now being accused of failing the one duty that supersedes all others: shielding your child from harm. One Twitter user summed it up perfectly. Samuel raised a daughter in peace. Steve raised a daughter in Hollywood. One turned out invisible. The other turned into a headline. And that's the truth no PR team can spin. Steve Harvey might be America's favorite motivational speaker, but Samuel L. Jackson just motivated an entire courtroom with one line. Because in this new chapter of Hollywood reckoning, real fathers don't stay quiet. They testify. As courtroom whispers echoed Samuel L. Jackson's damning statement, another thread began unraveling, one that tied Steve Harvey not just to his daughter's choices, but to something far more insidious: Diddy's inner circle. Over the years, Sean "Diddy" Combs built more than just a music empire. He built a fortress, a network of protection, a rotating cast of loyalists, insiders, and so-called handlers whose job wasn't just to support him, it was to shield him. And according to Jackson, Steve Harvey may have been one of them. The term handler isn't new. It's used in Hollywood and politics to describe someone who manages public image, smooths over scandals, and whispers advice in the dark when the cameras aren't rolling. They don't need titles. Their power comes from access. And few had more access to Diddy during the 2000s than Steve Harvey. Their friendship goes back decades. When East Coast versus West Coast beef was threatening to implode the rap industry, it was Steve Harvey who reportedly brought Snoop Dogg and Diddy together on his show to perform Unity. On the surface, it looked like peacemaking. But behind the scenes, Suge Knight, former CEO of Death Row Records, tells a very different story. From his prison podcast, Suge alleged that Harvey was a two-faced opportunist, that while he publicly brokered peace, he privately mocked West Coast artists and aligned himself with the East, specifically Diddy. Suge even claimed Harvey was rewarded with favors, protection, and career opportunities in return for loyalty. In that light, Steve's silence on Lori's rumored relationship with Diddy takes on a darker tone. Because if the rumors were true, if Steve benefited from his proximity to Diddy, then the optics of him attending a dinner with his daughter and the rap mogul shift from awkward to calculated. It wasn't just a father tolerating a relationship, it may have been a handler managing one. Jackson reportedly alluded to this in court, saying, "Some men protect their daughters, others protect their brand." That quote hit like a punch, because now fans aren't just revisiting old interviews and photos, they're revisiting power dynamics. Who was around Diddy during the parties, the retreats, the studio sessions? Who helped him manage his image while darker stories brewed behind the curtain? Steve Harvey wasn't just a guest at the table, he may have helped set it. And now, thanks to Samuel L. Jackson's testimony, that role is finally under the microscope. Because in every scandal, someone always knows more than they admit. And the question echoing in court is no longer, what did Diddy do? It's, who helped him do it? As Diddy's legal battles intensify and his inner circle begins to fray under public pressure, the question that haunts this story isn't just about what happened, but about who was used to keep it hidden. And in that tangled web, three names continue to reappear like clockwork: Cassie, Justin Combs, and Lori Harvey. Let's start with Cassie. In late 2023, Cassie Ventura, Diddy's longtime partner, filed a lawsuit that sent shockwaves across the entertainment world. Her accusations weren't just personal, they were explosive. She claimed years of emotional control, coercion, and disturbing sexual manipulation, private surveillance, forced encounters, and a chilling routine of submission disguised as affection. The public was stunned, but what mattered more was what followed. Diddy settled almost immediately. The terms? Confidential. The damage? Already done. The walls had cracked, and just days later, 4 more women stepped forward with similar claims, each alleging Diddy ran a private world of fear, domination, and exploitation under the glossy veil of a celebrity glamour. That same week, fans began noticing something strange. Lori Harvey was nowhere to be seen. No new photos, no Instagram posts, no interviews, no statements. And when her name did re-enter the conversation, it was through resurfaced speculation that had never quite gone away. Had she dated both Diddy and his son Justin? It's a rumor that refuses to die. Justin Combs, Diddy's eldest son, was once photographed with Lori at parties and red carpet events. For a time, they seemed close, intimate, but suddenly that narrative shifted. Enter Diddy. Same girl, same circles, same headlines, but this time with Steve Harvey photographed smiling at the dinner table. What changed? Some believe the entire arrangement wasn't organic, that Lori's involvement with both father and son wasn't romantic. It was symbolic, a flex, a tool, a way for Diddy to assert power, not just within his own household, but over others in his network. A method of control so bold, it didn't need to be spoken. And who was caught in the middle? Steve Harvey. Was he blindsided, or was he in on it? Samuel L. Jackson seems to believe the latter. His courtroom comments allegedly hinted that Diddy's relationships were rarely about love. They were about leverage. And when the court mentioned Lori's name in the same breath as Cassie's, it wasn't to draw a direct comparison, it was to expose a pattern of using women as pawns, of creating relationships that blurred the line between partnership and possession, and of staying silent while reputations, like Lori's, took the hits. Lori eventually denied the father-son dating rumor in a brief TV interview, calling it absolutely untrue. But by then, the public wasn't just skeptical, they were questioning everything. Because in Diddy's world, image is everything. And if Lori was part of that image strategy, then someone allowed her to be, and now for the first time, the world is asking aloud. Did Steve Harvey protect his daughter, or protect his relationship with a man now facing the collapse of his empire? As the courtroom spotlight widens, it's no longer just Steve Harvey under scrutiny. His wife, Marjorie Harvey, once seen as the elegant matriarch of a blended empire, is now part of the conversation, and her past is raising more eyebrows than ever. Before she became a regular feature in Steve Harvey's glamorous life, Marjorie had a different story, a darker one. A story tied not to red carpets or motivational quotes, but to the streets. Her ex-husband, Jim Townsend, served over 2 decades in federal prison for attempting to traffic cocaine in massive quantities. But it wasn't just Townsend who drew the attention of authorities. Marjorie herself was allegedly under FBI investigation. The agency raided her businesses, froze her assets, and though she was never charged, insiders claimed she was dangerously close to being indicted. Townsend, after his release, made a stunning statement. They gave me a choice, cooperate and leave her out of it. And he did. That's the context Marjorie brought into her relationship with Steve Harvey. That's the past Lori Harvey was raised in. Samuel L. Jackson in court reportedly referenced generational echoes that follow young women into the public eye. That phrase hit different because when fans look at Lori's trajectory, linked to older men, wrapped in media scandal, used as a symbol more than a person, it starts to feel like a pattern, not an accident. And Steve, he married into it willingly. Now the timeline looks suspicious. After Jim Townsend went to prison, Marjorie built herself back up. And when Steve Harvey divorced his second wife amid cheating allegations, Marjorie stepped in, marrying him and bringing Lori into the picture. The family rebranded. Suddenly, the Harveys were a talk show dynasty, rich, polished, powerful. But some fans say it always felt too clean, too curated. And now with Diddy's court case dragging Steve's name into the mud, people are wondering if this marriage wasn't just a love story, it was damage control. Is it coincidence that Steve, a man famous for giving relationship advice, ended up tied to Diddy, an accused abuser, through his daughter? Is it coincidence that Marjorie's past vanished from the public eye just as the Harvey brand exploded? Samuel L. Jackson doesn't seem to think so. He testified that the system that protects power starts in the home, and with Marjorie's past, Steve's silence, and Lori's rumored entanglements, the Harvey household is starting to look less like a brand and more like a blueprint. The court isn't just interested in who enabled Diddy, it's now asking, who made silence a family value? Samuel L. Jackson's testimony didn't just shake the courtroom, it's shaking the very foundation of public trust in some of the most iconic figures in entertainment. What started as a bold comment about fatherhood has turned into a full-blown reckoning. Steve Harvey, once seen as the voice of wisdom, the king of clean comedy, the man whose relationship books topped bestseller lists, is now at the center of whispers that question everything he's preached. Because if Jackson's words carry weight, and the public believes they do, then the image Steve has carefully built over the last 2 decades may be built on silence, alliances, and secrets he never expected to see the light of day. And here's the uncomfortable truth. This fallout doesn't just end with Diddy. If Harvey really was a handler, someone who protected the brand, smoothed over the headlines, and stood by while power did what power always does, then he's part of a system that needs dismantling, not just exposed. And it doesn't help that Lori Harvey's name continues to hover near the epicenter. A young woman trying to define herself, yet constantly pulled into narratives of control, silence, and speculation. Her dating history is now being dissected not for drama, but for signs, for clues, for damage. It's a burden she never asked for, but one her family's choices may have helped create. Meanwhile, Jackson walks out of the courtroom with something most people in Hollywood fear losing: integrity. His words have ignited conversation, not just about Diddy, not just about Steve, but about all the hidden relationships, the quiet compromises, and the generational silence that keeps the powerful protected. Because the reality is, Diddy didn't operate in a vacuum. He operated in a system built by people who were willing to trade discomfort for opportunity. And now, as legal proceedings inch toward trial, the world is watching with sharpened eyes. Will Steve Harvey speak? Will Lori Harvey tell her full truth? Will others step forward, handlers, insiders, ex-partners, ready to shed light on a machine that's finally losing oil? One thing is certain, Samuel L. Jackson may have just ripped the curtain down. And when the smoke clears, it won't just be Diddy's name we remember. It'll be the names of those who stood beside him and the ones who stayed silent.